about some of the stuff that's going on, because oftentimes you're doing it every day where we're selling it, supporting it, and doing that sort of thing. So we'll do our best to kind of talk to you a little bit about Overlaminates today. Hopefully share some new things for you. It's hard with classes to try and encompass something that is on the same exact level that everybody needs it to be. So maybe some of the information is going to be a little basic, maybe some of it's going to be a little more than that for you, depending on where you are with your experience level with Overlaminates, but hopefully it's something you can walk away with. And we got food, so, you know, that's what we're all here for mostly. By way of you folks that are all here today, how many of you are familiar with lamination at all? Okay. Do you guys have these pieces of equipment in your buildings now? Yeah? Okay. Are there any operators that are in this room? Okay, so there's some operators as well. All right, fantastic. So I needed some help. No. We have like 3 operators. No. Okay, so anyways, this is Adam. I just introduced you here while you were out there. And then also in the back is Bob Shipley. Bob's one of our sales guys, our outside sales guys here at Regional as well. Okay, the format for this is casual, it's open. We wrote it on a chalkboard. There's no printed agendas, there's no PowerPoints. This is meant to be something that we can discuss openly. Questions you have, we want to hear them now at the time. We don't want to wait for the end. And hopefully there's some discussion you guys can have with us. Or we may not have 90 minutes of stuff, at which point we have to unleash the dancing monkeys and we'll finish up the time that way. But what we wanted to do is talk a little bit about Overlaminates in general, and then we want to talk about some applications, some specific applications, where the majority of you guys are familiar with lamination to begin with. You're aware that there's hundreds of choices. There are tons and tons and tons of things out there in the lamination world. Obviously, we can't discuss all that in the time frame that we have, so we wanted to pick a few things to go over. We have a couple pieces of equipment that we can, look at. We'll spend just a few minutes showing you what that looks like and discuss the basics of that. But what are overlaminates? I guess we can start with that. What are they? How do they exist? And we have customers that buy printers. Obviously, it's a piece of equipment and a process that accompanies the digital printing. We have some people that buy printers and operate them for months, years, and then come in and ask us. So I keep hearing about overlaminates. So there are some folks that don't hear about this on the front end. Overlaminates are basically a protective film that we put over the top of any graphic that we print. We also now have overlaminates that go over the top of cut vinyls and all of those types of films now that are kind of big in the auto tuning world, the decoration world for vehicle wraps. There's different types of products available out there. There's polycarbonate overlaminates, there's PVC overlaminates. There's various types of materials that make up basically the components of the products that we use in our industry. Fast calendar. Are these terms that you guys have heard before? Some of you probably have heard the difference, heard this terminology used. When we come into the overlaminate world, it's very similar in the digital media world as well, that it's important we understand what those two things are and why they're different and why they're important to know the difference. So in the print side, there's lots of media out there that we can print to, and the cast versus calendar is basically terminology used to classify the type of production or manufacturing process made to put these products into our hands. In the overlaminate world, there are cast overlaminates and there are calendar overlaminates. And just for those who may not be familiar with what the difference of those things are in a nutshell, because we could hold a whole class on this process of how this is done. The difference is Cast products they are a higher end product, they're a more expensive product, and they are a more conformable product in general. That's an easy way to remember those particular materials. They are more conformable because the characteristics in the way that they are made allow for them to be stretched, allow for them to be pushed into areas in door handles, concave areas. They can go around and conform around circumferences and bends and corners, the back of cars, hoods, all that kind of thing. They can conform over rivets as well. And when they do that, they're designed to stay there. So a cast product doesn't have the tendency then for it to return to its normal state. And that is a characteristic of a calendared product. Calendared product are sometimes referred to as promotional products, intermediate products, maybe short-term products. Sometimes those are terms that are used. But what that means when you talk about calendar is a calendared product has a memory. So it's got, as it is made and it's calendared out and it's in its sheet form, it's going to always want to be in that sheet form. So why is this important to know the difference? If you go to put products on the wrong application, if you take a calendared product and you conform it down into the door handle of a car, and then it will go down into it. Most of them will go down in and they'll stay stuck for a period of time, usually not very long, but that material will eventually pop off of that concave area and it will tend. It'll do the same thing over the top of rivets. So that's, in a nutshell, the difference between the two. Cast has no memory. It's like the free bird. You can bend it, stretch it, twist it, heat it, wrap it, do whatever you want to it, and by and large, it's going to stay in that area. Calendar, not so much. Questions about cast versus calendar? Any urban myths that you guys have that you want to dispel? Anything we need to know on our end that you guys as users are finding to not be true from the manufacturing side on that? Okay.
No, one point on that is, and Bob, you may be able to tell better, is that some people will think that using a cast vinyl to print with and then laying a calendar laminate, or vice versa, that works. But they actually have a different shrink rate, and so they will separate from each other. And I see it all the time driving down the street. I'll see somebody's wrap on a car, and you'll see like the vinyl smaller than the laminate, or the laminate smaller than the vinyl, because they've done that. They've mixed those two up. It's always best practice to stay either calendar or cast.
You're better off going the other way if need be, putting a cast laminate over. Yes.
Yeah. Some people do that. Yeah, some people do that to cut costs, save costs, or whatever. And it will work because sometimes the adhesive from the laminate is strong enough to hold everything kind of in place and together. So, but best practice is always cast and cast.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Okay, when it comes to laminates as well, there's also a term used to describe laminates: hot laminates versus cold laminates. For the purposes of everything we're talking about today, and by and large, predominantly in our industry today, cold lamination is what's used for the products that go into the industry. Thermal or hot lamination is something that I believe still exists, but in different markets and different areas. It's an encapsulation process where the laminates are in a film form, and there is no active adhesive until they are heated to a certain degree, and then they are encapsulated. So office supply places use a lot. Probably you guys do stuff like that as well too. For encapsulating and doing stuff like that. Everything we're talking about today, and predominantly everything we sell here at Regional, is going to be cold lamination, which means it's basically crack and peel. So the products are going to have an active adhesive on them that stays active all the time, and that adhesive is protected with the release liner. It comes in various forms. You'll see it change from brand to brand. Some of them use paper liners, some of them use poly liners, but essentially we're dealing with lamination that looks like this, where when we pull off that liner, we have the adhesive. It's sticky, ready to go. For all intents and purposes, it looks and feels like a clear vinyl you might print to. Okay? So no thermal. We're not in the thermal world here, and that's nothing we're going to be talking about or covering today. Let's see. You know what's available. The list is so big. It's massive. People come in and say, you know, I'm looking for vinyl I want to print on. What do you suggest? And it's like, oh my goodness, there's so many options. The overlaminate world has followed suit. It is identically followed suit. There is literally, guys, is there accurate to say there's 100 choices, maybe more, in terms of laminates available that can go on all sorts of media and go through these machines. And, so we typically try to drive the selection to the application, where in the past maybe the selection was driven by the type of equipment that you had, or was driven by an ink technology, or I don't know, something like that. You almost have to, at this point, when it comes to lamination, look at what that final application is and work your way back from there, because that really is the way you narrow down to find the right products. As Adam mentioned, there are pitfalls that you want to avoid when you get into lamination. You can do things that can really cause a train wreck for your projects down the road, and you don't want to do that. So I look at it this way, you know, when it comes to applications in our marketplace, our manufacturers, the 3Ms, the Oracals, DR tapes, all of them, have done a fantastic job of making all sorts of ingredients. And those ingredients are what we sell to you folks, and then you put them together to make those projects. And it's just a matter of finding the right ingredients. But the ingredient list for overlaminates is long. We're going to talk about a few of them today. We're going to show you what those look like. Some of them you may be familiar with, some of them you aren't. But I think that there is virtually a product for almost any application that you could imagine or dream up now. Whether it's something that's going on the floor, ceilings, walls, cars, even hypoallergenic products for human bodies. So go figure. It's a crazy world, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So there really is an endless amount of products available out there, but it's all application driven. Okay. So why overlaminate products? Question from you guys. Why? Why do you do it?
Durability.
Durability? What was that? To make more money. To make more money? Yeah. Right? Value add? Yeah, durability. Yes ma'am.
Aesthetics, to make it look better?
Yeah, that's a very good one. Yeah, there were 3 or 4 that I had written down. Obviously, durability, protection, right? Overlaminate, I think, is kind of a protective term. So from an abrasion standpoint, it provides extreme durability for graphics. I have some samples.
Oh, which one's
Stuff. Oh, it's right here. So I'll just hand a few of these around to you guys. This is a printed graphic on an Oracal media. And look down, go this way. Touch and feel those, and you can kind of see just the printed, no lamination. This is what you're looking at. The ink manufacturers, the machine manufacturers, the media manufacturers. I'll tell you, this is a product that will last for a long time, and it will. We know that. There's a lot of applications in our market that doesn't require overlaminate, but laminates do provide durability. Here's a couple of samples behind those that have the lamination on them, and you can kind of scratch and feel. And I encourage you to destroy these, figure out, scratch at them, feel the difference between them. If you haven't had a chance to do that, these are things we can mess up. You have an abrasion resistance with the overlaminate. The other thing too is there's a UV factor. This is something that I think is more of a technical term than is a practical term or a practical advantage used in our industry. But there are overlaminates that for applications that get a lot of direct sunlight can add some UV resistance to help the inks last longer. All right, we mentioned aesthetics as well. This is part of the reason why there's 10 billion different types of laminates out there. Because in addition to having application-driven products, there's a finish for each one of those that varies from a high gloss or a wet gloss all the way down to a flat matte and everything in between. So for every one product out there, there's usually 3 or 4 finish options available, and then there's whip options, and so that's why when you walk in the back of our warehouse, we have thousands of boxes in various configurations. So aesthetically, you can create different looks to images as well by putting little laminates on there. Let's see. How about from an installation standpoint? Anybody here installers? Anybody had a chance to do some install work? Yeah. Well, in those same samples I handed around, peel off the release liner on each of the two. Feel the difference between those products in terms of the stretchability, how much they are pliable, one versus the other. When you have products that do not have any laminates on them, you have simply the PVC vinyl in this case. This time of year it's not so much an issue, but in the warmer months of the year, what does PVC do when it gets warm? It's soft. Yeah, it gets really soft. And all those plasticizers in there agitate that softness, and it becomes really difficult to work with. So if anybody's had the pleasure of installing any kind of graphic in any kind of heat in June on any kind of surface, you know that it's a pretty difficult challenge without some sort of a transfer tape, or unless you're just a really dang good installer, and there's some of those out there that can do that. So from an installation standpoint, it can provide some stability for putting the graphic onto panels, obviously on the vehicles or wherever the application is. Last one's the value add, right? I mean, we're all here to run a business, to make money, and looking at ways to add value in products you can sell to your customers. Overlamination is something that definitely exists. I mean, it does provide a graphical protection. That's a very real thing. There's nothing mythical about that. And the finish as well. There's lots of different and unique finishes out there. We'll look at a few of them there in just a second, but I mean, even some of the more fun stuff that's available there that can be done now, I'll hand this around, that are kind of more on the extreme side. The whole carbon fiber thing is a real big trendy deal right now. They have overlaminates that you can put over the top of printed graphics that will create that kind of carbon fiber look. At this point, I think it's simply only an indoor product, so it's not something you would probably put on the vehicles themselves, but the decoration is really transformed into that market big time. Another interesting one is flock. I'll hand this one this way. Pretty unique application. Not sure I'm so in love with it, but some people think it's pretty cool. As you can see, it does different things to the image, but then there's some other types of products. This is a sparkle. Throws just a little bit of glitter into it, so from an aesthetic standpoint, you can create that kind of look. This one's a little more difficult to see, but it's actually a leather. It's a mock leather type of overlaminate that will create a little bit of a leather texture to the surface. So, I mean, from an aesthetic standpoint, there's a few options like that out there that you can do as well, that are kind of on the far outside of the world. They're going to be more unique and probably more definite specialty. Yeah, so that's the same image with each of those laminates that go over the top. It's different. And there's a few others out there. There's some frosted type products and stuff. But yeah, there's a whole world of that kind of specialty. There is, yeah. We can get that for you and show you what those look like.
One thing I wanted to mention on that was that all the images that we did in here for this class were all done on the same media, same printer. So the inks and the media are all the same. Only thing that's different for us is over laminate that we're using. So when we see the differences in the images, it's all done with the same printer, same media.
No, we wanted to have you guys be able to see what that illustration looks like. Here's more different. All right, questions. Questions you guys have yet about this stuff? Okay. pitfalls. Let's talk about that for just a second and kind of explain that to you. There are some pitfalls with lamination. We have customers come in often and have products that fail. And sometimes we find that there's a mismatch in the types of products that are being used. As Adam mentioned, it's important for us to sell products and ask questions of our customers. You know, what is it they're looking for? When it comes to matching laminates with media, it's important. The stretchability, if you take one half of the equation and put a cast vinyl down, without the overlaminate, it's going to perform the way it's designed to do. When you take a calendar laminate and slap that over the top and marry those together, it's not going to yield a good result in the end. Because that tendency for the calendar laminate to come back to its original form is going to supersede in most cases, the adhesion on the vinyl itself. And you'll either have the vinyl separate entirely from the application surface, or in some cases you'll have delamination occur, where the laminate will separate from the graphic. In either case, it's a failure that won't look good. It's a failure that will result in needing to have the project redone. That can't be fixed. There is no fix for that. It is any kind of aesthetically pleasing. So that's important. That's a pitfall. The other thing is just the wrong application. Really stress this a lot because I think there's a tendency sometimes to look at trying to figure out ways to take products that are maybe on the buckle of being acceptable or not being acceptable and pushing them a little bit too far past their limits. There's a price difference between these products. And when you're talking about you know, cast versus calendar, there's a pretty significant price difference. And as the business place, our market has become more competitive. I think it's you know, pushed us into trying to find new ways to be more economical with the stuff that we're doing. But at the end of the day, you just can't take these products and put them in the wrong application and hope that they're going to stay or work. It won't. It won't. Riveted applications need products that are cast if you want to have the conformability around those rivets stay in place. If your customers are okay with them being tented, then you can get away with using calendar media. But you know, the lamination is kind of the very end of the whole run. So you can do everything up front right, select the right media, you can sell a job for the right cost, you can produce it, you can laminate it, but if it's not the right laminate, at the end of the day, it's going to fail when it gets in the field. And it's going to need to be stripped and start, you have to start over with that. So any experience with that? Have you guys had experiences where you've had things like that occur, or yes, no? There's, I'll tell you, yeah.
I don't know what happened. We did have a blue window on a vehicle, delaminated, but things were matched up correctly.
That was the window perk. Window perk.
But the laminate delaminated from the perk.
Yeah. So there's, and I don't know what the exact application is, but there is a specific laminate for window perk, and then some people know this about window perk. The window perk has a specific application process that you have to go through with sealing the edges, staying like quarter, half inch away from the edge, or something like that. So window perk's a different animal, and I have seen it delaminate, but there is a specific laminate meant for window perk material. So we're not going to. Yeah, we're not. So, yeah, but that's a good point, because that's where it comes into play that, you know, there is a specific substrate or lamination for each substrate. You know, at least try to match them as best as possible, but like in that specific application, kind of a specialty item, you gotta make sure we're using that one.
There's a lot of useful tools, and you guys will all leave with one of these with some different stuff today. But the manufacturers have done a pretty good job of building matrices that are available. You've probably seen some of these before. They update them all the time, usually every year at least, as new products come out. And it really does a good job of being able to identify for you as you go through the list of medias, what are the right types of laminates to use for those, depending on the applications, which are usually across the top. So these matrix guides are available, they're helpful, and it really takes a lot of the guesswork out of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And of course, we're available to help out if there's things we aren't able to answer. We have a lot of lifelines to manufacturers to try and find those answers for you. But yeah, there's, I guess, to muddy the whole cast versus calendar and that, there's now products that are called ultra calendar that kind of bridge the gap between the two. We won't go into that too much today, but I think at times it gets a little bit complicated. So there are the ultra calendar products out there, both in the media and the overlaminates, that are kind of intended to, what's the word, kind of scooch by when you shouldn't, that you need to, and it's only going to be short term, so it won't matter. That sort of thing. So, all right, any questions about laminates? Okay. Talking quickly about the equipment. We've got one webbed up. Is there anybody in here from any of you operators who know how to web a machine without swearing? Yeah, one. I had to have it done before you guys got here because it always includes a few bad words. There's a few tricks that I've seen people do. I've spent hours on YouTube, and I come in here and try and do it. And, yeah, can't get it. Anyways, we have a couple pieces of equipment that we sell in here. These are all what we refer to as either cold laminators or heat assist laminators. Again, just to differentiate, they are not thermal laminators. They will not work with those products. Those products require high heat, like upwards of 200 degrees and plus, right? For that adhesive to become activated on the product itself. And these machines will not do that. So we either sell cold laminators that are just that, these rollers. There's two rollers that come down. Does this come out? That push and push the product together. Both of those rollers are cold, unless the product is what we call a heat assist laminator. And I think both of these units do have that capability. And when what the heat assist does is it provides heat on the top roller, and it's minimal heat. It's not hot. I think 110 degrees, about there, is the max that you can run that. Not hot enough that you couldn't put your hand on it and leave it there. That heat is designed to basically kind of, I've heard different reasons why, but I'll tell you the one that we hear most often is that it helps in, obviously is an adhesive that's active on that product when you peel a release liner. Just that supple amount of heat applied to it kind of allows it to apply better, cleaner, and more what we call invisible over the top of the graphic. On occasion, you'll laminate a product, especially the dark or heavy saturated areas, and there'll be a little bit of a silvering that you see when it comes through and it's done, right out the back of the laminator. That typically and usually will go away over time, but with that heat-assisted roller, that will help eliminate that on the front end, so that when you're handing the product off to your customer, they're not seeing that silvering. Again, the heat over time, that will eventually go away, but that's primarily it. Yeah.
Heat's really good when you're using on substrates.
When you're mounting product down substrates too.
Yeah.
It actually helps a lot on that, because then you don't have any that lifting or.
Yeah. One thing with the heat is that, or the heat assist, is that it helps with, it makes the laminate a little more pliable. And so when it lays down, it's not as rigid coming off of the roller, and you get really kind of a smooth, glossy, or if you're using glossy material, glossy lay down on that material. So that's one thing we notice a lot with heat assist on there. Yeah. We have a lot of customers that don't use heat assist, and that's fine. That's just another step up that they've gone to in the lamination world. So just adding a little bit of heat there.
But as far as the mechanics of the machine, they're pretty basic. You run your product through. We'll run some stuff through this one here in just a second, but they come out the back side and they're done, good to go. Contrary to some of the print side, the print world, where you have to have outgassing and different things like that. When your lamination comes out the back, if you've done everything on the front end correctly, that product is available for you to do anything you want with it. You can take it out back and put it on the car, you can put it on a table and cut it, you can put it on a routing machine and water and start die cutting it out, whatever you need to do to it. There isn't a wait period after lamination that you need to obey. On the front end, there is, and with any kind of solvent type of printer that you're using, I know this is a gray area, so I'm just going to tell you what we're told, and then we'll leave it at that. But typically, there's what is suggested is a 24-hour time for the product to outgas those solvents, so that when you do laminate the product, you're not encapsulating those solvents or trapping them inside of the print on that layer of ink, which can cause problems in both directions. It can go backwards and attack the adhesive, and in some cases it'll go forward and attack the adhesion between the laminate and the vinyl itself. So I know it's a hard world, and that's a real gray area, but I want you to know that's what we are told, and that's what we have seen failures occur, especially in some of the heavier saturated prints. The outgassing and the solvent nature in that world is very real. That's not a myth. In the latex world, which is kind of a popular format that's HP has driven into our market in the last few years, that isn't really the case, so there isn't any kind of outgassing that has to happen, but it's important as well to know that that can be a potential pitfall for you. Yeah.
Are you talking about all types of printing, like digital and screen and everything with conventionals, or just the digital?
My familiarity is with the digital.
I would assume it would probably carry over to both markets anytime you're laying down solvents like that. Although I don't know the exact curing process of the screen printing portion, but I would assume that there's got to be with solvents. Okay, yeah. Oh, perfect.
Okay. But we have seen it with the digital.
Yeah, it's not something that happens immediately. In fact, we're going to break the rule today, and we're going to laminate some stuff that we printed today. Yeah. It's not going to combust, it's not going to blow up, and it's not going to fail before you guys leave today.
I thought it was just an excuse that production gives.
Yeah. That was true for about 10 years when I worked in production. So, but that changed. No, it's a pretty real thing, and it can. If we were running solvent machines, you guys know this. You smell them. There's definitely solvent in that product. So, okay. Other questions? Yes, no? Okay. Am I forgetting anything as far as all this stuff goes? Bob, Eric, we're good?
Sure.
Yes.
Well, if you don't give it 24 hours, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
There's a potential failure point where the solvent starts to outgas and it starts to attack the adhesive on the laminate, and you'll have separation between the two.
I'll get fired soon.
Well, it doesn't. I don't see it all the time. Actually, I'll be honest. There's very few people that wait 24 hours. And now, I'll say that with a disclaimer, because we always tell people with solvent machines to wait 24 hours, just because there is that outgas.
I usually give it 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, here's a...
If it works, it works.
Here's a sample of some images that we printed on the rolling machine this morning. We're going to laminate them right now and show you what that looks like. This particular image isn't super heavily saturated. It may be okay, depending on the application.
The thing with this is, we printed this on the rolling probably 3 hours ago, maybe. And right now, to touch, that's completely dry. Right? So there's a little bit of, it's hard to tell, if you haven't ever experienced that outgassing problem, it's hard to tell that that's what's going to happen, right? Because to touch, that's completely cured. But the part that we don't see is the chemical reaction that takes place in the curing process, right? So when it comes out of the printer, there's a little bit of heat there to actually dry that ink, but it's not actually fully cured, right? So there is a portion with solvents that it has to go through to fully cure. So, like I said, I've seen people take it right off a true solvent, right? So our roll-ins that we sell are eco solvents, a little bit mild. I've seen people take them directly off a true solvent machine and laminate it and out the door. And they work. But I've also seen it the other way, where people with mild solvents, I've seen them pull it off the machine, laminate it, A couple days later, especially like Lorenzo was saying, in the darker areas, blacks and dark blues, it starts to almost look like a bubble effect underneath there. So I've seen it.
Anybody have the hankering to run a laminator? All right. The operation of these is really quite simple. There's a couple of tools that can be helpful. Probably should have pulled a few out to show you, but one of the biggest challenges in the production environment is getting the graphic through. There's a high level of static electricity with these things. I mean, they will zap you into next week if you're not careful. I think it's dry, it's dangerous. Painfully hurt dangerous, but what that does is attract a lot of debris in the environment as well. So there's different rollers you can use as you're feeding these through to kind of roll across, and they're basically like a huge lint roller. They can pull this stuff off. Nothing worse than getting your beautiful graphic all the way through and then seeing, you know, hair, lint, just dust mite. I mean, the smallest thing on the top, the smallest thing in between the media and the laminate, you're going to see. You look at it and you're like, what the heck? That is so minute, but it will leave a big dimple in the product there. But as you run your material through, we'll just run this so you can see what it looks like coming out the back end. Machines all have variable speed, and you can run them through fast, slow, depending on your level of experience.
So one thing you can see is that our image is quite smaller than our laminate, and typically when people will run it that way, they'll have some kind of paper or something underneath it to keep the vinyl, the laminate from sticking. We're daring, we're just going to pull it through. We can fix it.
Yeah. We know.
One thing I want to go over technical-wise on this while we're doing this is that this machine here has a pressure gauge on it that will tell you typically where it's supposed to be with most vinyls and lamination. This machine over here, it's just a hand crank down. There's no indicator to tell you when you're to that point. We see this fairly frequent in the industry that people will crank down on that laminate, on the laminated roller, like really hard, and it stretches out your image. And then they go to apply it, and some images will kind of try to come back to form, and they'll start ripping off the wall, off the material, whatever you're using. And the other thing too is that we'll see issues with people trying to print and cut, where they tighten it down too much and it stretches out that image. Then they go to cut it and their cuts are slightly off, or it's not reading registration marks or something. You know, we see issues with that as well. So it's always good practice to know the tension on your laminator and how far down you're going with that specific laminator.
Yeah, lamination is an art. And for you guys that do it, you know it's easy to print stuff. But when it comes to lamination, there's a little bit of a
I
technique.
guarantee it.
Yeah, you kind of have to build a little bit of a relationship with your laminator and understand the ins and outs.
Get to know it.
Yeah, so that's it. That's the product, and that's what it looks like when it comes out the back. It's really, it can be that simple if everything is done right and everything is done correctly with the setup. Yeah.
Just a question, did you have the heat on this one?
We did, yes, the heat is on this one here. And you can come up and feel it. It's a lukewarm feel. It's nice to work around on these cold days.
I got a question about the heat. Once I forgot the heat on my machine, and I went home. And then my boss called me and he was like, there were a lot of smoke in there. So I found out like the laminate got kind of burned and stick to the roller.
Because it was still set in place. I have never seen that. I don't think our machines ever get that warm that it will
Well, I got
actually.
almost the same machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not had, Bob, have you heard anything like that before?
They only get up to about, what, 110, 90, somewhere in there?
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah.
No, but I feel mine was so warm at that time.
Yeah.
So you couldn't touch it.
It could have been something wrong with the heater on it.
Yeah, the heating element.
One thing I would say is that anytime you have that heater on, or just in general, whenever you're not using your laminators, they'll always have those rollers separated because it will create flat spots. And if you have the heat assist, it's even worse. It, you know, makes it even softer. So when it's down like that, you know, you walk away for a weekend. And sometimes it might take 3, 4, 5 days or whatever, but I've seen where people will go for the weekend, come back, and there's a slight flat spot. And you'll see that in your lamination. So,
Yeah. The lamination is, stopping at mid-print can cause issues as well. It's very touchy. It's really a touchy process. You want to have everything set up so that when you do start your run, you go all the way through and you finish it. You stop an image in the middle and then start it back up again. Sometimes it leaves a little bit of a smudge mark there.
Any tricks to keeping your alignment?
You know, the only trick that I know, now he's talking about, you're talking alignment for when you're feeding it through so it doesn't walk off you. Yeah, you know, the best thing that I can say is just start with those straight edges. You got to have a straight edge when you feed your graphics in, or they'll start to go in at an angle like that.
well, and there's different, when we're talking about alignment, right? So first thing is, if you're trying to match your image, you know, this image here, edge to edge with your laminate, you give yourself no room for a little bit of walk, right? The other thing is if we get, I mean, this machine here is equipped for it, so if we're running panels of vehicle wraps, right, so we're doing like huge panels like these panels here, we have, on the bottom here, we have a roller that allows us to take that image off of the printer on the tube, right, still on the tube, put it on there, we match up our edges with that, and when we run it through, it should come through straight, right? The problem that a lot of people have is they'll do, you know, one-off graphics, and they'll, you know, whether it's long or not, but a one-off graphic, and they'll set it on the machine, they put it in, and their edges of their print are very close to that edge, and it's hard to justify that image up front. So I always say, if you're doing one-off graphics, give yourself a little bit of wiggle room on the edge because there's no real science to it unless, you know, like this machine over here has edge guides, right, that you can try to use, but it's hard to say every material is going to be perfectly straight when you cut it off. So it's I think my best recommendation would be give yourself some space on the edge or load it on the take-up unit. So best practice.
Any other questions on the equipment? We don't want to spend a lot of time. I think that's really not the focus. We want you to understand the mechanics, the basic mechanics of how they work, what they will do, what they won't do, and definitely that, you know, they are not thermal laminators, so they won't do that kind of product for you. Just from a standpoint, you know, there's different features between different brands, you know, that exists with all the stuff that we have in our market. But these units over here are about twice as expensive as maybe these units right here. Both will do the same thing at the end of the day, just ease of use in between. Some of that is where you get the added benefit on the more expensive units. So most of them have edge or pinch protectors in them as well. We disable them. We don't encourage you to do that. Now there's these stops and pinch. So, anyways, what questions do you guys have about lamination? So we talk about those things in detail before we do run out of time and get into some of these other things. Is there anything burning that you guys just felt like you needed to come and know and learn about, or questions that you can ask other people?
This one's kind of way out of laminate subject.
Yeah.
The issue we're dealing with right now, tell me what the best laminate is for dry erase. We're fighting with the anti-graffiti, we're fighting with the dry erase, we're fighting with the seal right. I mean, which one is the one that actually works without having to fight with tons of chemicals that clean it off?
Depends what markers you're using. What markers you're using.
This is what,
because like the anti-graffiti, like the anti-graffiti, I can ballpoint pen to it and wipe it off, send it to the client, they start playing with it, oh, I got ghosting. You know?
Just, yeah, we run into this.
let me hand these out. So this product, this is the Seal Right product, okay? We have the same thing that comes into the play with the whole chalkboard vinyl. That's a big, huge, trending thing right now. And some of the chalkboard vinyls, you go to clean them off and they don't clean off all that well, right? This is what I have been told. We've had pretty good success, I think, with the Seal Right product. It's something that we sell a fair amount of, enough that we sell it to people who want to come in and just buy 5 or 6 feet of it to go home and do projects with and that sort of thing. The caveat with, I think, most of the products on the market is that they encourage people to use the low odor markers, and if they don't, that is a challenge for them in terms of getting them cleaned off. Can I just have you guys kind of take those and hand them around? And I have some markers here that I'll give to you to try it out with.
For different manufacturers, you don't have to use the same substrate as you do overlaminates.
Well, no, absolutely not. Yeah, create a vinyl with Oracal laminate, whatever. It's more along the integrity of the material, so when you use the high performance, that's kind of what we like try to manage out there. Yeah. Now, if you're looking at warranty, that's pretty good. Right, yeah. For functionality on this.
You get some red markers, they're still really marking it off. You always have running off like hydrochloric alcohol for a while. They actually even go to
No pressure, we're all watching.
yeah, it leaves a ghost image in there, you know, it's gonna look like
We discussed this.
The other challenge that we have with the dry erase, my kids are really good at doing this. They make these markers here look really close to the dry erase markers. So these will not come off. But I don't know, Bob, what do you think as far as which products dry erase that you've seen the most?
Seal is probably the better product. We do sell a lot of Vanguard because of the price. It's a lot cheaper. But the Vanguard just has a coating right on the top surface where the seal goes all the way down to the adhesive. I don't know who's going to be drawing that hard on there to get it clear down there. But there is a huge price difference between the two products. And I've had good luck with both. I've had a few little hiccups with both. So you may have to use a little thinner on occasions to get them off. We try to do that a little bit also.
Yeah.
Yes.
The other thing, vinyl dry erase boards will work. Companies make the markers also make cleaner when they formulate that to their markers. So that makes a huge difference. So if your clients are trying to erase their dry erase boards with tissues, then they're going to get what they paid for.
Yeah, eventually you see some go. We see that on just the traditional boards that you buy at the office store, right? It takes a while to get them off. So.
And what about rubbing alcohol? That'll take it off. Does it ruin the graphic?
Not that I don't know on the dry erase. I don't think so. On the anti-graffiti that I'll hand around in a minute, no, it won't for sure. That's a stronger.
But you have to condition it again after. That conditioner is made for the. If you clean it with alcohol, you have to condition it back.
Oh, really?
There will be no
Yeah, it kind of it'll lose the dry erase, which is what Bob was talking about. Once that layer is gone off of that Vanguard product, then it becomes really more just a standard laminate at that point, where the seal rights through and through. So you got to be careful about that. I would caution on the any of the dry erase products to really probably stick to very mild things, and probably, as mentioned, the like the Expo cleaner and stuff like that. But the low odor markers are, I would almost say, really a must. And I've got some that are not, and they're tough to get off. You've got to really work on them to get them off. So I don't know what's different between the low odor markers and the ones that are not. And they're not identified very easily on the packaging and the markers themselves. So that's kind of the caveat. So yeah, like the bubblegum scented ones, kids at school use, massive. Any questions on the dry erase? So the dry erase is kind of on its own. There isn't a matching media. You know, and some of the different medias out there have matching vinyls for the laminates. This is really designed to go on anything flat. Okay, this is not a cast product. This is not something that you can wrap around a pillar, an interior pillar of a building, and have it stay in place. It's probably going to want to release from that. So this is really a flat application product. Okay, and I've never seen it used outdoors. I don't recommend it to be outdoors, so probably indoor use. Another product that's closely related to that is the anti-graffiti. I didn't label, I tried to get labels on everything, but we tried to label the ones that looked alike so that it was clear. This is the anti-graffiti product here. I'll hand some of these around. And then the boards that are printed with the larger balloons are also anti-graffiti. I'll give you guys a chance here in just a second to come up and we can put it in action and see what it looks like. So, and we'll use the permanent expo markers to do that. But the anti-graffiti is as it pretty self-explanatory says. It's designed to remove graffiti or have graffiti removed from the graphic if that should take place. Yeah, my understanding is right now it's only gloss. Yeah, I've never seen anything other than gloss finish on that.
I think it'd be easier to get off the gloss than it probably would have had finish.
Yeah. So, but, and there's a couple of different brands out there as well. This product is also the Seal brand. We sell a lot of Seal products, so we try not to make this anything that's brand related. There's a lot of products we usually sell. Just a couple of brands of different products that we have on the shelf. But anyways, I always get so nervous doing this because I tested this like 8 times yesterday. And I know that this is going to be the one time it's not going to work. Always scraping it, it's like, oh, it's not coming off. And so you got markers and you got spray paint are the 2 things. I didn't want to bring any spray paint in and do that because it's pretty smelly. But the design with this stuff is that you can have everybody come up and mark it, and put smiley faces, and words are popular, all that kind of stuff. And where the dry erase will come off typically, this stuff is not going to come off. And once it's sat on there for any period of time, it's not going to want to come off. Even using mild, this is just kind of a Chemworks green all-purpose cleaner. We use this around the building, our janitorial staff, and even it's still not going to come off. When you do switch and go to something a little more harsh, like acetone, which is pretty harsh, then it will come off. Maybe. You can see it just kind of drip off there. So you have to work at it a little bit, but I won't spray too much on because it's pretty smelly stuff here. Okay. Want me to pass it around? I have to dilate every other week. Okay. So you can see now you can pull it off, and I'm only familiar with acetone use of this. I don't know if you guys have used anything different. Bob, Adam, is there something other than that that?
That's primarily what I see people using now.
Lacquer thinner.
Lacquer,
A
yeah.
lot of lacquer thinner in shops.
So, question with that.
Yeah.
Is it gonna do anything to the surface of the material?
No.
Not that I've seen
Break
yet.
it down and then.
No.
No, it'll be the hospitals when you use that now.
So you can see that's what this product is designed for. It's pretty legit. I think that the anti-graffiti stuff has come a long ways. There used to be, way back in the day, different types of anti-graffiti roller, like clear coat stuff that, oh, is that the graphic? We'll just keep rubbing it until it comes out. There was clear coat that was anti-graffiti. Didn't work so well back in the billboard days. That's where I kind of got into the whole industry, and it really didn't pan out to be the right kind of solution. But I think this stuff is pretty legit for what we do today, and it will work. Sharpies are typically the types of things that are being used to vandalize a lot of the graphics. Spray paint's more outdoor graphics. We see, I think, being vandalized more with the Sharpie markers and that sort of application. So, in terms of the anti-graffiti, it's not to be confused with the Teflon products or some of the real hard coat products. This stuff is, you can cut it. So this is not an anti-cut product. It's an tagging graffiti type product. Okay. Again, designed probably for indoor, outdoor, any application like that, and it's flat. This isn't a product that's going to be, it's not going to go well over compound curves and those sort of things.
So it does hold up well outdoors, UV right?
It does. Anything I'm leaving out of this product, guys, that you know of? Okay.
Now, I have seen people use it on more applications than just graphics. Applying it to different, well, I don't know about brick or anything like that, how well it actually would adhere to that, but I have seen them put it like on vinyl fencing, you can put it on in stalls and bathrooms and stuff like that. So the Overlaminates is not just for graphics, you can use it for different applications. So.
Any questions? Okay. We mentioned in the beginning some of the advantages of some of the value added for products can be the aesthetics, right? So let me show you just a couple. And again, these are the same image. The wrap overlaminates, and when we're talking about wrap, we're talking vehicle wrap, vehicle graphics. These are the cast products that are used for all the vans, the cars, the Volkswagen Beetles, motorcycles, anything that needs to have those compound curves. And this is an example of the different types of finishes that are available in the same product, essentially. So this one here is a gloss. Some people refer to it as a wet gloss. It looks beautiful, and it looks really shiny, and it does look wet when you install it. Some people don't like that look. These can be really difficult to keep clean. I think they're prone sometimes to being a little more, over time, they can get, not scratched, but the black cars kind of get those hazes kind of rubbed into them. Sometimes that will happen with these products over time with this really high gloss wet look. But you can see, I'll hand around a bunch of them to you guys here. They are, it makes the image really pop. And that's something that overlaminates can do to different types of images, is really make the graphic pop nice off of it. In the middle, and there's varying levels. There's the gloss, the high gloss, there's a gloss. Depending on the brand, there's a luster, there's a semi-gloss, there's a satin, and then there's a matte. So there's varying degrees of sheen that you can achieve as you go through and look at the different types of products. This is a luster. I don't have a very fine eye. So when I look at this and I look at the other, at the gloss, they look pretty darn close to me. But there is a slight sheen difference in this one as well. I'll hand these around to you so you have some of those. When you get into the matte products, there is a very marked difference. And the whole matte industry, particularly in the high performance products or the cast products, so enough for you guys all there, is an increasing trend. So the whole matte thing is really kicking in. I'll hand some of those around next, but it's a very different look. It almost looks like there isn't a laminate on there when you're looking at it compared to the unlaminated print. But this is an option as well that you can use. The thing to understand though, and this is really important, the type of laminate you put on the graphic changes the graphic colors. You can see the nice vibrant colors in the glossy products, and when you put the matte product over the top of that same image, it has a dulling effect. It's by design. It's not a defect. It's not a bad product. It's just important for customers to understand, especially customers who are concerned about lighting. That's where this is, outside of the vehicle world, this is used a lot in interior trade show markets, in areas where they're worried about having lighting reflect off. You don't want to see that. Studio work. It can change the product, the look of the product when the customer gets it. So just, kind of as I guess a potential pitfall to be aware of, that when you do show customers things as far as proofing goes, show them what the lamination looks like so that they don't get surprised when the end result comes and they see something that looks a little bit dull, because it has that effect. And when you match those up, the gloss and the matte, you can kind of see there's a little bit of a difference in the vibrancy and the way the image pops off there. So those are the wrapped products. Now, when it comes to those standard vinyl, those standard overlaminates, there's now different levels as well that are all just called price points. That's an easy way to distinguish them. There's different price points. This product is the high end. So these are the most expensive products available on the market. They are the most conformable products available on the market. They will work for virtually any application that you want, with the exception of floor graphics, because it doesn't have any anti-skid standards built into them. We'll show those here in just a second. But then there are different price points below this, all the way down to just a generic, short-term, flat surface, inexpensive laminate that can, again, provide you with that aesthetic look of either a deep matte or a high gloss finish, and then kind of everything in between. So lots of options, and like I said, it's more of a price point thing at that level. So questions on that? All right, who's familiar with floor graphics? Okay. These babies are cool. This one here is, there's a couple of different floor graphics. The biggest thing to be concerned with floor graphics is the legal issues, where these are going. We live in a very litigious society, and people are looking for ways sometimes to find culpability in wherever they can. Sliding or slipping on a wet graphic is something that is a concern. There's ASTM standards for overlaminates that are designed for floor laminates, and when you use a floor laminate, you want to make sure that one of the products that the product you're using has that standard built into it. It just protects you, protects the customer, and it's a real test standard that the manufacturers go through and test against to make sure that it's according to what they say it needs to be. Once you get to that point, there's several different kinds of floor laminates that you can use. Floor laminates are used obviously in floors, but they're also used for countertops. They're used in any kind of high abrasion area. They provide the maximum amount of abrasion resistance, period. I don't think there's anything else out there. Maybe some of the old 15 and 20 mil polycarbonate overlaminates that are pretty hard to find now might be more abrasion resistant. But this stuff here is about as bulletproof as you can get for graphics that we produce on a daily basis. I'm going to hand this sample around. This one here is kind of the extreme for a floor graphic. It's a very thick product. When you feel it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a 12 mil product, so whatever your vinyl is that you're laying on top of it, it's going to be plus 12. So if you have a 4 vinyl product or a 4 mil product, you almost have a 20 mil product at the end of the day when it goes down. And it also doubles as sandpaper for wood projects when you get home. And
this stuff's very expensive, is it not?
this stuff is pretty darn expensive, yeah. And this particular product right here, if there's not enough, I have more, guys, if you run out. This product is designed for sidewalk graphics. So this is actually a product designed for exteriors and designed to hold up well outside against the outdoor elements. Now the difference between the different types of floor laminates. This is probably not the best choice for Davis High School's basketball gymnasium floor. And that's also a popular application for floor graphics is gym courts, things like that. This might be good outside on a sidewalk. You know, for example, on our sidewalk out there, you might have seen some graphics that we throw out on the sidewalk out in the parking lot. This might also be good for maybe the shopping mall where there's going to be a high traffic area. But this isn't something that you would put down on top of a basketball court. So there's different products that are available. They come in different thicknesses. They come with different textured finishes depending on what the application looks like. There are smoother types of products that are more around the 5 or 6 mil. They don't provide the same kind of warranty as this does, but this stuff can be really fun. It can be die cut. It can be laid down in all sorts of applications. Yeah.
Okay, weird question. It's because I've had to deal with that with a client. Any of the floor graphic laminates qualified as food grade?
Good question. Are they eating off of it?
No, it's a processing plant, warehouse type thing, and so they're looking, because they're burning up all the so what they wanted to ask us to do is we could bring in vinyl striping with the laminate on it instead of having to paint it, because they're burning up the paint flakes off, it's neat.
Yeah.
Same thing. So
I don't know.
I really don't know either.
yeah. Well, we have to beat them, it's like, doubt it, but
Yeah.
We've never had that question, but now we have, so now we'll know. Next time I talk to you, we'll know.
It'll be about 20 minutes.
Any questions on floor laminates?
So what do you put on basketball courts?
The basketball courts, there's a product from Sill that we've sold and used. Oracal also has a product that's used on the basketball courts.
Is it called basketball courts?
No.
That's the technical name.
Yeah, I'll show you. I think I might have a sample here. I can show you what that looks like.
And about how many mils is it?
It is, so this one here that I just handed out is 12 mils.
But like for a basketball?
A basketball court, it's about half that. It's usually 5 or 6 mils for that. And the texture is more, it's a smoother texture. It's still orange peel. It has an orange peel texture to it, but it's not rough. It doesn't have the deep grooves like this product does. Again, this one here is really designed for it to retain that anti-slip in outdoor elements. So in wet, in icy, snowy conditions, this is something that you could, it's still gonna not let you slip and slide all over it.
Do you know what the warranties for life is on this?
The warranty on this particular product is 1 year. Yeah, 1 year.
What about on the basketball one?
Most of the overlaminates for the floors, it's a 1 year guaranteed life. Now, the warranted time and the actual time typically vary a lot. especially now in the vehicle world, sometimes I think it varies on the side of where it fails sooner than maybe it's like designed to. On the floor laminates, and even on some of the street products that we've had out on our driveway and stuff out here, it's typically the opposite. I've seen basketball gymnasiums that have had graphics down for 2 years, and they can be waxed, they can be polished right over the top, and it's no problem, and they look as good as they did the day they put them in. So,
did you say something at the beginning about the legalities of that? Is there certain tests that are run on certain things for basketball courts?
It's not designed, the testing is not done for application. There's just an anti-skid test that is done in our industry for any kind of floor graphic laminates.
So if we're putting on like a basketball court, how do we know what that test is?
The product will have, for example, I think it is in all of the tech data sheets for the floor laminates, it will have that in there for you. Not on any MSDS sheets, but on the tech data sheets. It's a pass-fail rating. It's a pass-fail rating. It's not a graded scale. It's a pass-fail, kind of like a fire.
And like typically in compliance with the standard.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. It's ASTM is the standard. I don't know what the number is right offhand. Yeah, I don't see it here. But it's just one rating for all floor graphics. It's not a separate one for interior, a separate one for gymnasium or basketball, that sort of thing.
That's a very good point, though, on the legality portion of it for you guys to understand too, is that when you're selling it, not to get yourselves in trouble as well. So I mean, there is a standard, and typically going into businesses like that, where a lot of times it will be spec'd in, whether it be in a new build or a refurb, and they would have a standard that specific application would have to meet, and you could work with the engineers and designers to meet that application or meet that standard. But I think that would be a good point, that you make sure that it is to their spec of what they're doing.
Just out of that, you gotta remember, anytime anybody does something like that, it's to the best conditions. Like when they talk about, for example, like the speed limit on a highway, that's for sunny, dry roads, not winter conditions. Same thing with this, not, you're gonna put the laminate down, that happens to get something wet or oily, or it's not the conditions which it's spec for, and there's that variable in there.
And that's a good point, and that actually plays into every application out there, and every application that you do, it's all based on what you're putting it on and how well it's actually prepped to receive that application. So.
The standard is, and I'll give you guys, I'm handing these around right now, these matrices, but the standard is ASTM D Delta 2047. So it's a pass-fail. It's not a grade. There's not varying levels. It's just, it is. It's like the NFPA for the fire ratings. So it either blows up or doesn't. So, any other questions on floor? They're typically very robust laminates. They're typically very thick laminates, and they are typically never designed for anything other than an entirely flat surface. There's, I think, sometimes a desire for people. Some of the laminates, there's several of them. They look pretty dang cool, and they can give some types of images a pretty neat look to them as well. And sometimes I think that people look at that and go, "Ooh, I look good, wrapping a pillar." If you try to wrap this product here, for example, around the pillar, it's gonna come up for sure. So these are flat applications. Ton of countertops. They're used a ton for countertops, a ton for floors, and I've seen them occasionally on flat walls as well. Even though we haven't discussed it, there are laminates designed and medias that are designed for wall applications. This is an example of one up here, and so again, there's thousands of different types of products out there. Okay, I don't have any idea how we are on time. 10 minutes. Okay, so let me hand around a couple of things for you guys. I didn't want to throw too much at you right from the beginning. beginning, because sometimes it's hard to kind of fumble through everything, so I hand it out as we get to it. We have just enough of these. These are some inkjet media selectors from Oracle. Oracle's a brand product that we sell a ton of. The thing I would point to you in this particular media guide is that matrix for the laminates to the, I think it's around page 12 or 15. And one of those pages, it will tell you all of the different types of laminates that they sell. You'll see the anti-skid in there, you'll see the wrap products, you'll see the intermediate products, and then you'll also see the matrix for how to match those up. So it takes some of the guesswork out of having to do that yourself, especially when you have projects that you know you're going to be using multiple rolls on, and you're not just trying to mix and match what you have in the shop for smaller types of work. In addition to that, I've got some little books from 3M. These are pretty handy little books. They're kind of a quick reference guide for all of the different products that are available. Again, the medias are in these as well. I apologize about that. But there's a little swatch there so you can actually see what the laminate looks like. And sometimes that's helpful when you're trying to determine what the matte looks like versus the glossiness. We have more if there wasn't enough. And just so that I keep everybody happy, I've got Oracle ones too. So they can't say we didn't give you those. And these actually from Oracle are just the laminate books themselves. So there's no media in here. These are just little swatches of the different laminates that they sell. And these will match right up with the matrices that I just handed out to those media guys today. I don't like to preach to people different brands when it comes to stuff like this. I think everybody finds what works for their environment and we go with it. And I'm happy with that. I think that's good.
So they make sure you get it.
Anybody not good books on both brands?
Yeah, we need one more of these for him too.
No, got it.
Oh, did we?
No,
I
not
shared.
yet.
He's in trouble.
Okay, so with just a few minutes left, questions you guys have?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So say you want a universal vinyl and overlap that you're using on a EcoSol rolling,
Yeah.
flat surface all the time, outdoor durability, what would you suggest? What did you say?
We do that. We use a cast luster that's in the middle. I mean, we need a special, like if we're going to do a vehicle thing or whatnot, we'll buy according to that. But it's a generic cast luster because cast is the best. Luster is a middle grade of that sheen. I don't know where you need it for, unless you need a specialty item.
Yeah, if it's going to always be only flat, you can go with the calendared product. And like in Oracle's brand, they have a product that's their 210 or 215 laminates. I think are 3 and 4 years. Is that how they separate those? About 3 and 4 years. I don't know.
You're talking about the Ronald?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, the 220.
Typically not a printable Ronald. So it's more of just a
So like a good combination for graphics and laminate would be like an Oracle 3165 print vinyl, and then like a 210 or a 215 laminate. And they're economical. They're good, solid products if they're always used on flat surfaces.
And when you say flat surface, are you talking about like vehicle graphics, window graphics, stuff like that? Nothing with a rough surface though. Okay. That would be a big deal. Some people may say flat surface, but flat surface they don't take into account that it's a rough surface that's already here.
If you're laying, oh, sorry. I was just saying, if you're laying graphics on to like, you know, die bond or to Cintrus, things like that, that's what we refer to as flat surfaces.
Right. So I wonder, how do those compare to like the IJ35?
Comparable. That would be, yeah, that would be 3M's version of the same type of product. Yeah. And they're very solid, promotional, kind of just everyday use, good products. Yeah. And like I said, I make everybody happy with 3M. When 3M walks in the door, I think they're great. I give them hugs, and when Oracle walks in, I give them hugs too. I think customers find what works well for them.
All very good answers, by the way.
Yeah. Other questions? Okay. Guys, anything in the back there that we need to address or hit up? How was lunch? We do okay with the lunch stuff? That's good. Okay.
You know, one point I wanted to make was that a lot of this information, I mean, we only covered a small portion of the laminates out there, but we sell more. Then a lot of this information can be found on our website, you know, data, the product itself, and people that have accounts set up, the cost of it and everything, but, you know, because there is quite a few more applications that we just didn't have the time to touch on, like these wall graphics, you know. That wall graphic, just kind of touch on it real quick, it's literally the laminate that makes that wall graphic what it is. So there's an overlam on top of that, but without that overlam, you don't get the look or the process of how that actually works. So there is a lot more out there that we haven't touched on. So good resource, just go on, check out the website and you know the data on there. So.
And look us up and call us. Don't be afraid to give us a holler, or you know, if you stop in often. Just start walking through the building until you find somebody.
Yeah, right.
But
what it is a partnership. I mean, we kind of do the same thing with our manufacturers, but I mean, if you have specific applications that, hey, if somebody asks you about and you're not sure, use us as that kind of that partnership with you guys to make sure that you guys get the right product for the application. You know, I mean, our guys inside, you know, they're very knowledgeable. So, you know, utilize our guys to make sure that you guys are getting the right application or right material for the application.
Yeah.
Meet a few of those Oracle.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to hang tight. I'll grab some as soon as we jump out. I think we have some more. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I appreciate everybody coming, and hopefully it was beneficial for you. Okay, look forward to the website. We'll have a more research. Thanks, guys.